You're listening, aren't you? Good. That means the cold hasn't taken you yet. Let me begin where all proper lies begin, with the truth. My name is Lucien Sinclair, and before you decide what I am, before you spit the word monster into the dark like the others did, you should know who my father was. They called him the Butcher of Blackfield, and I am his son. The smell of meat and smoke. Close your eyes. Go on. Imagine winter in the 1930s, real winter. The kind that bit through coats and prayers alike. Snow piled against crooked houses. Chimneys coughing smoke like dying men. And beneath it all, the smell. Blood has a smell, you know. So does fear. So does burning flesh. I grew up above my father's butcher shop on Millstone Road. That shop was my cradle, my classroom, my church. I learned the names of bones before I learned my letters. Femur, scapula, sternum. My father said every part had a purpose, even the ones people threw away. He wore an apron stained darker than any sin the town pretended not to notice. People feared him, yet they came. Always they came. Best cuts in Blackfield, they'd whisper. They never asked from where, and I never asked why. The man behind the mask, my father wasn't born a monster. No one ever is. Monsters are made, hammered into shape by hunger, cruelty, and silence. He wore the pig mask long before the killings became stories. Said it helped him focus. Said pigs were honest creatures, they didn't pretend they weren't meat. I remember him kneeling to my height, tying the straps behind his head. "Lucien," he said, voice muffled behind rubber and snout. "The world already sees us as animals. I just choose to look the part. Did I know what he did at night? Yes. Did I understand it? No. But children rarely question the gods that feed them. The night Blackfield became brave. Courage is an interesting thing. It tends to show up in mobs. They came on a night so cold the stars cracked like glass. 4 families led them, their names carved into my skull like gravestones. The Hargreaves, the Bellows, the Cuttersons, the Moorline family. Pillars of Blackfield, churchgoers, landowners, men who shook hands with clean palms and dirty secrets. They didn't come with the law. They came with ropes, torches, and righteous fury. I was hiding beneath the stairs when I heard the pounding. My father didn't run. He never did. He simply put on the mask. "Stay quiet," he told me. "Listen." The door splintered. Flames followed. Smoke crawled through the house like something alive. They didn't just burn him. They watched. I remember my father screaming not in fear, but in rage. The kind of rage that promises return. And then, silence. They thought the fire cleansed Blackfield. They were wrong. Ashes and promises. I crawled out after. Barefoot, burned, forgotten. No one claimed me. No one apologized. The town buried the truth with my father's bones and called it justice. I grew up elsewhere. Different name, different face, same memories. And every winter when the snow fell heavy and quiet, I heard my father's voice beneath the crackle of flames. They left 4 families alive, Lucien. 4 loose ends. Revenge, you see, isn't anger. It's patience. I found the pig mask in the ruins years later, half melted, blackened, smiling. When I put it on, something inside me settled, like a bone clicking back into place. The winter of my return was the coldest Blackfield had seen in decades. Roads vanished beneath snowdrifts. Neighbors shut their doors early. Perfect conditions. I didn't kill them quickly. That would have been mercy. They lived in the old farmhouse by the frozen creek, generations under one roof. They thought blood made them strong. I introduced myself as the Storm. I spoke to them while I worked, told them stories of a butcher and a fire and a boy who survived. They begged, they denied, they prayed. None of it mattered. When I left, the snow was pink and steaming. The Bellows, city people, thought distance made them safe. I waited until Christmas Eve. Families love traditions. They make excellent traps. I wore the mask the entire time. Let them see what the town tried to erase. When it was done, I left the pig's head centerpiece on their table. Symbolism is important. They recognized the mask. That was my favorite part. Fear has a taste when someone knows they deserve it. Iggs, the last family. The Moorlines were the hardest. They'd convinced themselves they were heroes. That killing a killer absolved them. I spoke to them the longest. Justice isn't clean, I told them. It's inherited. When the house finally went quiet, I stood in the doorway and watched the snow erase my footprints. Just like before. So now you know. You can turn me in if you'd like. Tell the police. Tell the papers. Tell God. But remember this. Blackfield sleeps easier now. And every winter, when the wind howls like something wearing a pig's grin, people remember that fire and wonder whether monsters truly die or whether they simply leave sons behind. Still listening? Good. That means the cold hasn't taken you yet. You might think the story ends where most people want it to end. 4 families, 4 debts paid, 4 names erased from warm beds and family Bibles. A neat little ending, isn't it? That's the lie they sell you, that revenge is a door you close and walk away from. Lighter, finished, free. Let me tell you something the living rarely understand. Vengeance doesn't end hunger. It teaches it. The silence after. When the last house went dark, I stood alone in the snow and waited for something to happen. Relief, perhaps. Grief. A ghostly hand on my shoulder. Nothing came. The winter wind moved through Blackfield like a held breath. The town didn't celebrate. It didn't panic. It did what towns do best when faced with truth it forgot. By spring, the papers blamed accidents. Gas leaks. Robberies gone wrong. The sheriff drank himself into excuses. No one said butcher. No one said son. They never do. And that's when I realized something important. They hadn't learned. See a man without a target. I tried to stop. I left Blackfield. Took a job cutting meat in another town under another name. Same knives, same muscle memory, different streets. At first, I slept soundly. No screams, no fire. But then the dreams crept back. Not of my father burning, of him watching, standing in the corner of my mind, pig mask tilted, arms crossed. Is that all, Lucian? 4 families? I started noticing things again. The way men spoke to their wives like property. The way children flinched when voices rose. The way towns protected certain people by pretending not to see. The butcher sees everything. That's the curse. The first one after. The first killing of the next winter wasn't planned. That's the truth. Whether it redeems me or damns me. He was a drunk, a dock worker, big hands, mean temper. The kind of man people excused because he was troubled and useful. I heard the woman screaming through the boarding house wall. I waited. I always wait. When the screaming didn't stop, I understood. I didn't wear the mask that night. I didn't need to. When it was over, I sat on the edge of the bed, shaking not from fear, but from recognition. The hunger had a name now. Purpose. I didn't want chaos. Chaos is sloppy. Chaos gets caught. My father had rules. He never spoke them aloud, but I learned them the way sons learn everything by watching. So I made my own. Winter only. Cold preserves. Cold keeps people inside. Cold hides footprints. No innocence. I am not the firestorm Blackfield painted my father to be. The mask returns only when it matters. Symbols terrify longer than knives. Never kill for pleasure. Hunger, yes. Satisfaction, no. That last rule is the one I break the most. By the second body, the whispers started. Not about me, about something else. A shadow, a copycat, a curse. They never see patterns until it's too late. I traveled now. Rail lines, snowbound roads, towns that looked just like Blackfield if you squinted hard enough. Everywhere I went, there were men who thought the world owed them silence. I corrected that. Sometimes I spoke to the audience in my head while I worked. You, listening now, you would have understood. The mask evolves. The pig mask changed over time. I stitched it myself, added leather reinforcement, deepened the eye sockets so no one could see where I looked. People fear pigs because pigs remind them of meat. They fear masks because masks tell the truth. When I put it on, I wasn't pretending to be my father. I was finishing his sentence. The woman who knew. Her name was Eleanor. She ran a boarding house in a mining town swallowed by snowdrifts and secrets. She watched me too closely, asked too many careful questions. "You cut meat like someone who's done it a long time," she said once. "So do you," I replied. She smiled. She knew. One night, she left a note under my door. "Be careful. The town is changing." I almost left. Almost. When they found her in the cellar weeks later, throat opened, eyes wide, I felt something unfamiliar twist inside me. Not guilt, recognition. Someone else was hunting now. You see, this is the part no one tells you about monsters. They inspire. The stories spread faster than the truth. Somewhere along the line, someone always decides the mask gives them permission. I followed the signs, the sloppiness, the cruelty without purpose. He was younger, angry, wanted to be seen. I wore the pig mask when I confronted him. He cried. That disgusted me, correcting the myth. I killed him quietly. No audience, no spectacle. Monsters that kill for attention ruin the craft. Afterward, I burned the mask. He'd made a cheap thing, rushed and hollow. The world doesn't need copies. It needs control. Speaking to you, you might be wondering now what that makes me. Executioner? Guardian? Madman whispering into the dark. Let me answer you honestly. I am what happens when a town decides fire is easier than justice. I am what survives when children grow up inside lies. I don't hunt randomly. I hunt inevitability. Blackfield again. I returned once. Years later, the butcher shop was gone. A pharmacy stood in its place. Bright windows, clean shelves. I stood across the street in falling snow and watched people come and go. No one recognized me. That was the final mercy. That night, I left a pig's tooth buried beneath the foundation. A reminder, the future. I won't tell you how many came after. Numbers make it sound like sport. What matters is that every winter, somewhere, someone listens to a story they don't believe until footsteps stop outside their door. And somewhere else, a town wakes up quieter, pretending it was always that way. You're still listening. That means something in you understands. I don't ask for forgiveness. I don't ask for absolution. I ask only that you remember this. When monsters are burned instead of judged, the fire doesn't die. It waits. And sons are very good at waiting. Now tell me, when winter comes again, will you lock your door? Or will you finally listen to what the butcher tried to say? Because I am still speaking. You're still here. That means you didn't turn away when the truth got uncomfortable. Most people do. They like their monsters distant, safely finished, dead in fires or buried under headlines. But stories don't die. They hibernate, and eventually, they wake up hungry. The winter that answered me. The next winter arrived early. Snow fell before the leaves had finished dying, smothering towns that weren't ready to be buried yet. I felt it in my bones before I saw it in the sky. The same way my father used to pause mid-cut and say, "Storm's coming." That winter felt different, not louder, not crueler, aware. For the first time since Blackfield, I sensed something following the idea of me rather than my footsteps. Newspapers used a name I hadn't given myself. The Hogwalker. I laughed when I read it. Then I stopped. Because names mean the story is learning how to speak. Have you ever noticed how killers are always described as blind to the world around them? That's another lie. I notice everything. The missing dogs. The silence in bars where laughter used to live. The way snow looks disturbed even when no tracks are visible. That winter, I found symbols carved into wood near my lodgings. Crude pigs, crooked flames, a butcher's hook. Someone wasn't copying me anymore. They were answering. The letter. It arrived without a stamp. Just my name. Real name. Written carefully. Inside was a single sentence. He would have been proud. No threat. No signature. That frightened me more than any knife ever could. Because pride is inheritance. I tracked the handwriting. Not the ink, the hesitation. You can tell a lot by where someone pauses when they write. It led me to a town smaller than Blackfield ever was. A place built around a mill and a church and nothing else worth saving. The man lived alone. He was older than me, scarred. Walked with the kind of stiffness that comes from carrying weight too long. When he opened the door, I saw it immediately. The look, the same look my father wore when he realized someone knew. "You're late," he said. I didn't ask how he knew. The fire survivor. He had been there, Blackfield, that night. Not one of the 4 families, someone smaller. A cousin, a helper, a boy who handed out torches and told himself it was justice. "I didn't throw the match," he said, hands shaking. "But I watched." So did I. We shared that at least. He told me he'd spent his life waiting for punishment that never came, that when the killing started, he recognized the rhythm. not revenge. I think you finished something, he said, and now it's looking for a new shape. That was the moment I realized the truth. This was no longer about my father. It was about permission, the weight of the mask. That night, I held the pig mask longer than usual. It felt heavier, not with blood, with expectation. I had become a measure, a line people crossed in their heads when deciding what they were allowed to do. You don't get to choose that responsibility. You either carry it, or it carries you. The fire survivor begged me. Kill me, he said. End it right. I didn't. Mercy isn't always clean. I left him alive with the truth that survival doesn't equal innocence. Some punishments take longer. The following killings weren't reactive. They were preventative. Men who gathered others like kindling. Voices that taught cruelty how to sound reasonable. Hands that never struck but always pointed. I spoke less, watched more. The butcher doesn't rush when trimming rot. It finally happened. A child saw me. Not the act, the aftermath. He stood frozen in a doorway, eyes wide, breath fogging the air. I expected fear. Instead, he asked, "Are you the pig man?" I knelt so we were eye level. "No," I said. "I'm what happens after." He nodded. Children understand cause and effect better than adults ever will. That winter, my father spoke again, not accusing, not commanding, just watching. The fire behind him burned low now, controlled. "You did well," he said. That terrified me. What comes next? I don't know how long I can keep this shape. Stories evolve. Symbols decay. Masks crack. Maybe one day someone will come for me the way I came for others. That's fair. That's balance. Until then, I walk when the snow falls, listening to towns tell me who they really are. And I speak back, quietly. So stay warm. Watch your fires. And if you hear hooves where there should only be footsteps, remember, the butcher never truly worked alone, and neither do his sons. I'm still here, still listening, just like you.